Business Boom Podcast. Welcome to the Business Boom Podcast, powered by Boomtag Media. Each week, we are sitting down with growth-obsessed, dynamic entrepreneurs, marketing experts, and business owners who have cracked the code to explosive growth. I'm your host, Kendra Noel. Let's take things to the next level and spark your business into its boom era. Okay, we are live for the very first episode of the Business Boom Podcast. I want to welcome my guest, Cassidy Handel of the Copywriting Mama. How are you doing today, Cassidy?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm great. I am really excited to have you on today. And we've been friends for a long time, and it feels like this whole episode has just been a really long time coming.
I agree. We've been talking about it behind the scenes for a long time. I've known that this was coming, and I've been excited to see it come to life. And here we are.
Here we are. I couldn't have asked for a better first guest. So thank you. Thank you very much. I would just like for you to have a chance to introduce yourself if you would.
Sure. I do want to give a little background that Kendra and I met on LinkedIn. Fun fact. It all
Yes.
started with a direct message. But my name is Cassidy. I am the copywriting mama. I specialize in messaging strategy and copywriting for anywhere from small to medium-sized business owners. I essentially help you nail the words so that you can attract your dream clients, earn their trust, and sell seamlessly to them while still sounding like yourself, but just selling way better.
Yeah, I love that. And I took a little snippet from your website. I hope you don't mind. But you just like you captured the words so beautifully, and you say that God turned your way with words into a meaningful ministry. And I just love that.
hmm Yeah, I really feel like I didn't always know my gift, and I didn't. I think we all have gifts, and I wouldn't have ever told you that writing was one of mine. Although I've been told by other people throughout my life, you've got a good with words, and I'm just like I'm just witty and kind of a smart aleck, but okay. And then just when things came crashing down, I got fired. Was how this all started. I got fired from a podcasting job, and I needed a way to make a living, and so I remembered one thing that old boss said was, if we ever don't work together, you'll make a great copywriter. And I didn't even know at the time what copywriting was. So I get to Googling what copywriting is. And I was like, maybe I can do this. And now here we are almost 2 years later. This is my full-time business. It's self-sustaining. It's what I do for a living. And I could not be more grateful that God had this in mind for me, because it's way better than anything I would have envisioned on my own.
That's amazing. It's funny how sometimes he just directs our paths somewhere different than we thought we were headed.
Mhm. Totally agree.
Very cool. Yeah, so you gave a little bit of background, but the reason I had to have you as my first guest goes a little bit deeper than just like the way we met, which was very cool. I almost ignored that first message that you sent through a DM. I'm like, oh, she's in my industry. Do I really want to open that can of worms? And you were in my same location.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay, we're kind of competitors, but I think we figured out that really we're not.
Mhm.
I do digital marketing strategy, you do copywriting, and we've actually ended up working on several projects together, serving some of the same clients. And sometimes that messaging that you put together for them just helps so much when it comes to social media and making the website. You know, I think they go hand in hand very well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree, and it's funny because we live in a very small town, and so how many marketers can there really be? And when I found you and I messaged you, I kinda thought the same thing, like, maybe we're competitors, but to me, you were so much more experienced. I was so new to this space that if anything, I looked to you as more like maybe kind of a mentor, maybe kind of just somebody, a big sister, somebody that's ahead of me in the game. And you just right off the bat, I felt like our chemistry, um, was really good, and I knew right away that by their fruit, right? I knew by your fruit that you were a good person, and we went on to host many of events at your house and elsewhere, and worked on client projects together. And it's just always fun when you can create a friendship out of a work partnership, because we get into self-employment because we don't want the corporate, we don't want the kind of being told how to do it and who to work with, and so we get to choose who we surround ourselves with, and we want to enjoy the work we do. And I think you and I marry our skills together really nicely, and in all the things that we've executed together.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And then one of the other pieces that's been super important to me is just like dreaming and like visioning a little bit together of what our businesses could be, how we want to grow, that kind of thing. And then just
Mhm.
supporting each other and cheering each other on as we both endeavor to grow our businesses.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny we look back at, like, some of the times we've sat down and talked about what we wanted to create and wanted to do, and now, I remember before I had a website, before I had anything, we wanted to create courses and things, and now we are just behind the scenes bringing those things to life, and even the podcast was something we talked about a long time ago, um,
Hmm.
that now is here. So I think it's important to have friends that you can talk about business stuff, and it's not just a different language to them, right? Because if we tell our families about what we do, they're like, "Marketing? What is that? Like, you writing social media stuff?" But we get what each other does, and I think because of that, we can give each other really sound advice about how to navigate the things that we want to accomplish.
Yeah, I see Americo has put in the chat strategic partners are important, and I couldn't agree more. And I think you also have to be careful about who you align your partnerships with. And I'm just really glad that we met.
Yeah, yeah, and even values, I would say, like that on a value level, you and I align in ways with our faith and things like that. And that to me,
Mhm.
that's like the best, greatest thing. I couldn't ask for something a bit more important to connect on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we've promised today's topic that we were going to dive into brand messaging. So
Mm,
I would say you are definitely a go to in that area. And I
thank
love the expertise that you've been shedding on Instagram. And I know you're on other platforms as well. But one of the first questions I have for you is what about brand messaging do a lot of business owners get wrong?
you. I would say first things first would be trying to duplicate what a competitor is doing just because something worked for someone else, trying to replicate whether it's a method or even using this similar copy. It's not guaranteed to work for you the way it worked for someone else, because if they develop that and it's authentic to who they are, it doesn't mean that you can just come on the scene talking the same way. Um, the other thing I think people do is they go straight to things like copywriting without doing the messaging strategy first, which is why I offer both of those, is because you really have to have that foundation. It's not just, okay, this is my expertise. This is 2 words about how my voice tone is, and now go off and write all my emails and copy. It really goes so much further than that. There's so much more involved in developing your brand's voice that just getting right to the writing isn't how it works behind the scenes, even though it might seem like that.
Right. Yeah, I would agree that a lot of thought goes into how that brand messaging is going to come across and who your business is talking to.
Mhm.
Um, how do you go about helping people find the right people to talk to?
Sure. And this kind of goes hand in hand with that last question about people often target the wrong audience, or they create an offer because it's what they want to sell, it's what they want to offer. And then they market it to a past version of themselves who would have needed that offer without really diving into the current and what specific challenges does that person face? What benefits are they looking to get? What objections do they have to getting the help that you're offering, right? Why wouldn't they want to get it? And then your differentiators as a brand, obviously it's so much more than just a this age person in this country that makes this amount of income. Like, your target audience profile just goes so much further than simple demographics. And so it's really important to develop that and figure out who has the money and who has the desire and who has the need, and then marry that together and create your ideal audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I'm working with clients, a lot of times I'll tell them to think of their current best client. And like, is that someone who you want to work more with? And if so, how can we work on, getting your marketing to where it would attract that kind of person?
Mhm.
Um, or this morning on a podcast, I heard someone say that they think of a real person. So that example I just gave kind of has a
Mhm.
real person in mind because it's a client. But when you were saying it's more than just like demographics, um, do you typically find you think of an example of someone who's going to be looking for that kind of service? So just to get super specific
Mhm.
about it.
Yeah, and one thing I left out too is I always go through their values, desires, and drives as part of that target audience profile as well. Like, what do they value? What do they like in somebody? Do they have any pet peeves? Anything that's a big turnoff? It helps to know somebody. A lot of the time I work with new business owners who maybe haven't even had that like real ideal client experience. I'll say I didn't
Mhm.
have it for the first year of my business, probably, or the 6 months, until I really worked with somebody who I was like, this is where I want to be. I want a million of this person. And
Yeah.
once you have one of those people, it really does make it a lot easier. But a lot of the time, this messaging strategy, this foundational stuff is coming from a place of I've been working with people who aren't the people I want to work with, or I'm getting all these clients and they're not, they're having poor outcomes with my methods or whatever. They're not, there's something that's disconnected. And so usually we start from scratch. It's great when we have a real example, but I will say, like, for the majority of who I work with, they haven't had that yet. They haven't had that client that's just the winner. They're making
Yeah.
money, but it's not the money that they love to make. They'd rather be making it with somebody more well fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really great point. Thanks for expanding on that. I'm sure the audience wants to know more about how they get their messaging right. So, the next question is, why is it so important to get it right?
Well, your reputation, right? Everybody has a past, but if your business is brand new, you have this opportunity to have a fresh start and to make a first impression. And so while you see a lot of these content coaches saying, just show up, just post the content, just do the thing, if you do it wrong, sometimes that can be more devastating to your business than if you had just held off and either worked with somebody or got mentored or something to get it right the first time. And not to say that you'll get it perfect the first time. There's a difference between right and perfect. Right gets you moving forward. Perfect is this unachievable goal. So really, it's getting it right the first time so that you're moving the needle from day one in the direction you're trying to move in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. So you're moving forward with that intentionality and knowing that it's going to
Mhm.
hit to the people that you need it to hit with to grow.
Yeah, not throwing spaghetti at the wall, wasting time following
Yeah.
trends and doing viral dances if that's not your thing. I mean, there's really a way to build from day one as yourself, and to always just have yourself be a continuation.
That's a really great point. I want to touch on Instagram a bit later because you really have changed the way I think of Instagram and kind of social media marketing as a whole. If it weren't for you, I would have given up on that a long time ago and only focused on LinkedIn. We'll get back to that.
Deal.
So, what kind of transformations have you witnessed after clients undergo a brand messaging transformation?
So to give some background on like what if somebody comes to me fresh and they've never worked with copywriter, or they have, we always start with a brand messaging blueprint. So it's the strategy that covers their why, their target audience, mission statement, brand vision, brand promise, brand story, keywords they're going to use, all that stuff, because you've got to know that stuff, because what it does is it guides your future decisions. So the best texts I ever get, well, first, the best texts I get are no revisions. That's perfect. Let's move forward. That's my favorite text to get.
Yes.
But my second favorite text to get is I really struggled to like convey who I am as a business owner. And this has come from the most confident business owners. You would be so surprised, and you'd
Mhm.
never know based on their socials that they were struggling with this identity crisis. And then they text me and go, I feel at home now. I feel like I can create from a place of knowing exactly who I am. And they can filter any business decisions, any marketing decisions through that blueprint and say, does it align with the values? Is it a good conveyor of the stories? Does it speak to that target audience that I'm talking about? Because if not, and it just speaks to somebody totally different, maybe it's not worth posting and investing effort in. Because we're
Mhm.
so, especially a lot of us business owners, we're creatives and we're visionaries, and we want to run
Right.
after every good idea that we get. And sometimes they're not as good of an idea as we think, or maybe not, the timing isn't quite right. But if you don't have that foundational messaging strategy, it's hard to, you're just weighing it on how you feel in that given moment on that given day. And we're human, we change through the day, especially as women. Like, we're on a hormone cycle that changes throughout the month, and you might say yes to something one day that another day feels totally misaligned. So having that foundation really gives you a place to decide from, move from, create from. It's the bottom line to everything you do.
Yeah. So that foundation you're talking about, that's your brand messaging blueprint, right?
Yes, and I think you've probably worked with clients when you're talking about being able to create content from somewhere. You probably, I'm assuming, have worked with somebody who has a brand messaging blueprint from me.
Mhm.
And like, let's just throw this out there too. AI, right? Nobody wants to like admit that their content's AI generated, but lots of my clients, I have a wedding photographer, I have nutrition coaches who their expertise is not in being a marketing manager, not a content creator. They're not yet in the place to delegate that, or they don't want to spend that money on that. So what this blueprint does is they can plug it into AI. It trains AI, and mine preferred, just let this be on record, Claude is superior in my opinion. Claude AI is my favorite, but I train them and they get a guide with it that trains them how to plug that blueprint in and say, hey, Instagram, create 10 reel hooks for my next 10 posts or whatever, and get really highly curated that uses their language, that uses verbiage they use, and is very on brand and takes minimal tweaking. And then suddenly they're creating, they love the process because they feel like they're creating stuff that feels aligned without expending all their energy on it. And just that win, that full transformation of going from dreading content to like loving creating it and it performing for them and getting them clients and getting them money. That's the goal at the end of the day.
Right, that's the important part. So we
Mhm.
can all come up with words, but if they're not words that sell, then we're not doing ourselves or our businesses any service. And I love this snippet I also took from your website. You say your words, but better at getting people to say heck yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's such
everything
a
good
fun
about
way to word that.
everything good about your brand exists in you. And I think that's the thing is I've never positioned myself as this superhero who, you know, saves. I don't save anybody, right? I don't save anybody. I'm not a mind reader either. I'm a good question asker. I'm good at asking the right questions to get you to spit out the answer that is going to be these big aha moments of, hey, you said this, and that needs to be the bottom line, right? Let's tweak that. Let's spice it up a little bit. And look,
Mhm.
you're the one who came up with it, and giving brand owners that satisfaction of like, they didn't hire me and I came up with all the words. I squeezed it out of them and then I refined it. I always say they give me the meat and potatoes and then I season it, cook it, and plate it to perfection. That's my job.
That's awesome. See, you're just showing your way with words right there in that example. So that's a lot of fun. And then how long does it take to make one of those blueprints for a client?
It's a 4 to 5 week turnaround, but I will say there's a lot of back and forth as far as there's an initial call that takes place and there's some filling in on their part, right? Because I need them to dump the
Mhm.
meat and potatoes and
Oh,
any
yeah.
groceries to work with. So it's a
Yes,
it's a 4 to
absolutely.
5 week turnaround, but I would say as far as hours go, like probably with calls and back and forth included, maybe 24 to 48 hours total of work time in that 4 to 5 weeks.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Well, I am going to, of course, in the show notes, give links to where they can reach you. And then at the end,
thank you.
we'll go over, some tips about how they can get a hold of you. But I just want to make sure that people know that that is an offer that they might want to look into if they're struggling with their brand messaging, because it's
Sure.
super important.
Yeah.
Okay, so um, about a year ago, we did a LinkedIn audio. That was back when they had audio rooms only, and it wasn't like a live like we're doing now. And I've been curious to ask you this question. So we did it about pitching in the DMs, right? And
Mm.
like how to not make it super ick. I think we titled it something like that.
Mhm.
And I'm curious to know if that's still part of your strategy and what you think about DMs.
Yeah. Okay. So I will say at that time, I don't think I was on Threads yet. At that time, I was just exclusively using Instagram. And I will say now I use Threads and Instagram are my top two. I am still I'm not opposed to pitching. I've been blessed to be busy enough that I haven't had to pitch in quite a while. I'll sometimes there's a casual pitch that goes on Threads where people will post that they need something or they need help with something, and people will just comment their info and their website links. And so that I guess is some light pitching that I've been doing, but I haven't sent like a full blown email or DM pitch in a while. But excuse me, I'm not opposed to it, and I'm not even opposed to receiving it either. I've gotten some really thoughtful DMs from people like bookkeepers and VAs and stuff. And as long as it's thoughtfully done, as long as it's not a hey, and then you can see they pasted your name in, or hey, the copywriting mama, blah 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 blah, or whatever, and it's just a generic message. If I can see that they put thought and time into it, I'm happy to receive it, and I'm just as happy to send those ones too. Especially when things get slow, having good pitching skills is so important
Mhm.
because if you don't, then you're kind of feast or famine. You're hoping that your referrals come in. You're hoping that people find you based on your website. You're really, really leaning into just attracting attraction marketing, basically, with your socials and your site, and SEO doing you favors. But if you want to take things into your own hands, I think there's nothing wrong, nothing to be ashamed of in pitching, as long as you do it the right way. Do it tastefully. Don't be gross, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I do think it's a good tool to have in your back pocket. I'm kind of the same. I haven't been doing it like engaging in pitching a whole lot lately, at least not making it part of like my weekly strategy like I
Mhm.
was there for a long time. But I was in the same kind of boat when we first started talking about it. I was new and I was trying to attract business, and I agree, there's no shame in it. Some of us need to be doing both outbound and inbound marketing, right? Outbound where you're
Mhm.
really trying to bring in those leads, and then inbound where you're putting out such great content that you're hoping somebody grabs onto it and like, hey, I would really love to work with them.
Mhm.
I did receive a DM this week that I thought was really funny and thoughtful. Like you said, like you don't mind it if it's, they've put some thought into it. It came through on LinkedIn and it was like, hey, Kendra, I know that this is where I'm supposed to send you a cold pitch and tell you my whole life story.
That's funny.
Basically is what they said, but I'm not going to do that to you. And I just kind of hope that you have a good week or something like that. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I can appreciate a message like that that gives some humor to it. And
I've seen some funny ones that were kind of memes that they're obviously customizing and probably has some kind of system to do really fast, but it'll be like, I saw your photo out in public, and it'll be like a wanted sign or something with like your face from your profile picture that they've taken. I've seen some like customized ones and they're super cheesy, but honestly, if you can make me laugh, I'll give it to you, you know?
yeah, definitely some humor in that kind of situation is good because it does just kind of feel kind of icky sometimes to
Yeah.
just be like, hey, this is me and this is everything that I do,
To
you
be
know.
treated like you're an income opportunity and not a person, you know, and that's where I'm careful about who I pitch. I only pitch if I'm going to pitch, it's going to be somebody who I look at that I really align with, that I would really want to go out of my way to work with. And I always say something about them. I'll give that much information about my pitch template. I always say something custom about what I love about what they're currently doing before I jump into here's how I can help you. Versus, and
Mhm.
you'll notice that's the opposite of the people who will go in with a hey, you suck at this, but I can help.
Yes.
Instead, I go,
I
you're great at this, and here's
yeah.
how I would like to add to it.
I
That's how
love
I'm
that
gonna do.
opposite approach. I think too often the message starts the other way with,
Mhm.
and I get it in emails and pitches on DMs as well. Hey, I
Yeah.
noticed that you did this and this and this wrong. I even got a screenshot the other day of my brand new YouTube channel with red marks all over it. I'm like, okay, I know it's not perfect. I know it needs some work. It's new,
Yeah, yeah,
It's new to
yeah,
me, I'll get there, but that's probably not the way to win my services.
yeah. Sometimes I counter pitch them and I say, if you'd like a better pitch, you can hire me to write you a pitch template, or you can go
Hey.
buy my email templates and it includes one in there. You know, I'll do it if I'm feeling sassy, but not
Uh-huh.
always. It's
Yeah.
not the best use of my time.
Right. Oh, that's a really good point. I
Yeah.
like that. Turn it around on them. So, uh, all right. Well, let's talk about Instagram a little bit. I would
Mhm.
really like to kind of go into the way that you changed my whole outlook on that. And like I said, digital marketing or putting myself out there online as a whole, it's really changed a lot since we had that very first coffee. And I'm like, I do LinkedIn, and you're like, I do Instagram, and we kind of had some conversations back and forth about that. Um, can you just tell us a little bit more about your approach to Instagram? Because I just love it and I think it would resonate with a lot of the listeners.
Yeah. First, I'll say you got to find your platforms, right? Not every platform's for every person. I tried
Yep.
LinkedIn, and I'm going to be so for real. LinkedIn did not yield results for me, and didn't, quite frankly, it wasn't worth my time. But Instagram, however, has been different. But keeping in mind who my target audience is going to be like a millennial mompreneur who has built their business up to being sustainable but is ready to take it to the next level. So I keep in mind who I'm targeting and where they hang out. People like me are on Instagram or on Threads, and so that's where I like to go. Now with Instagram, I will say the kind of content you post. Some people create something, they post it just to every platform as is. And I will say that's not the best social media strategy. I'd say you'd be better off becoming the expert at one or two of them. Now with Instagram at the time when we met, I would say reels were really picking up and really hot at that time. And then since then, carousels have kind of started to hold their own, and static posts have held their own. And it's funny, you're talking about these last couple of weeks. I think this was before we started recording, but these last couple of weeks, you said that I was killing it on Instagram, and I was kind of giggling to myself because I think in the last couple of weeks, I've only posted twice, but to my feed, but I've posted every day to my stories. I'm really all about Instagram stories is what I love, because a lot of people don't even scroll the feed anymore. They just tap through stories to see what everyone's up to that day in that moment. So I really maximize that. And I have a little bit of a strategy behind it. I try to talk about my newsletter at least once a week. I talk about my freebie at least once a week, my offers 2 days a week, and then just a day in life behind the scenes once a week. I've been running a little behind the scenes challenge over on Instagram, and that will launch later this year. But it's just trying to be consistent, I think, is important, but also better to not post than to just post to check a box, because people can tell when your content's not well thought out, or when it was just something you threw together to have something up. And I think it's better to have curiosity about what you're up to behind the scenes than just to be posting and making it look as though maybe nothing's going on behind the scenes. And I love to test things on threads. Threads and Instagram are connected. There's something,
Right.
and we'll check out the chat in just a second. I see it popping off over there. Threads and Instagram are kind of partnered up. And so what I'll do is I'll test concepts on threads. And if they take off on threads, I'll turn them into a whole Instagram post. I'll expand on it on Instagram. And then if it performs well there, I turn it into an email. And there's just ways to repurpose the same topics, because how many times can you talk about email marketing, brand voice, brand messaging strategy, and all that stuff, And so you have to keep it fun and try new things. And yeah, I don't know if that even answered your question honestly, but that's kind of my strategy there.
No, it's really cool. I just think like when you said reels was becoming the thing when we first started talking, and I was so scared to try to do a
I
reel.
remember.
And so you had me start with B-roll, which worked out. Like I had some videos on my phone of my kids on a swing, and I put some text over it with like a trending audio. So trying the trending audios, like that was new for me. And putting a video together was brand new at the time that, when you said, you should really try this. This is what is taking off right now. And now it's really become a thing on LinkedIn as well, with the video feed that they've instituted, and shorts on YouTube. I mean, there's so many reasons why trying reels, when you told me like this is what you should be focusing on, kind of like this is the up and coming thing, has helped so much. And not only for me, but I've started instituting it for clients, and now have some clients coming to me asking if I will help them with reels as well. So that's when I said, that you have just changed my whole outlook on that. And I'm really appreciative for that.
Thank you for applying it, because advice is only as valuable as the person who goes and executes with the advice. I will say B-roll, text over B-roll, right, was that of that time. And it still is working, but I think the underlying of why that works is the storytelling element of it. Because not every B-roll and every text is going to go viral or is going to perform. It's really about what are you capturing in the B-roll, and then what text are you laying over it. But really, it comes down to the storytelling element of, is it entertaining? Is it educating? Or is it, I'm forgetting the one thing. Mostly engaging, I think, was the thing. Is it engaging? Are you getting people to respond? So funny stuff, right? That resonates. That always performs. But also like talking heads now are doing really well. Always obviously put a caption. If you're going to be talking, give them a caption for accessibility. And again, that's like a target audience thing. Moms are scrolling in silence every time, promise. And so adding captions and knowing your people and how they consume and the psychology behind how they make purchasing decisions, and telling the story and learning to wrap up storytelling and selling together, which is like my big, underlying motto: storytelling and selling. And they can coexist. You don't have to just either be nurturing or selling. You can nurture while you sell, that you can be nurturing in the way you sell. And that is what I think the best marketers can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really great advice to remember that people aren't there for a sales pitch every time. They also want to know a little bit about you and your day-to-day life. So
Yeah,
that's
and
some great advice.
they don't mind being sold to as long as they feel like they're getting something in exchange, right? We're running businesses. There's no like question or putting a bag over the head of what I'm doing. I want to write your emails and your website copy, and I have a business to run. I've got a mortgage to pay. That's just the truth of the matter. But we can do it in a way that feels good and that's fun and that feels almost therapeutic in the way that you're able to kind of transcend your entire story through your business. It doesn't have to be all professional. It doesn't have to be super formal, which I think is why I've done better on platforms like Instagram over something like LinkedIn, because I think LinkedIn can take a little bit more of a formal approach. And yeah, Americo said story selling, and yeah, exactly, story selling. And I don't know what blue sky is, to be totally honest with
I've
you.
seen that pop up in the chat a couple times, people asking for tips and tricks on blue sky or thoughts about blue sky. I'm going to be honest, I don't know what that is either. So we're in the same boat there.
Yeah.
But
And
I'm
I'm
glad
so
people are asking questions in the chat. So I love that. And if
yeah, keep them
other
coming.
questions come up, we'll address those as well. So
Absolutely. Anything email, website, copywriting related, messaging, brand voice related, feel free, throw it at me, and I'm happy to give you guys as much as I can, as much as I'm
Awesome.
qualified to.
Those talking head videos, like I'm just going back to the first time. Okay, so I got past the doing the videos with the B-roll, and then it was
Mm-hmm.
time to make my first talking video. And I'm camera shy by nature. The fact that I'm even doing this podcast recording that's live and on video is kind of a miracle. My mom visited this weekend and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I remember when you hid from every single camera you saw." So trying to make a talking head video was, pretty intimidating to start. But I think seeing people who are out there doing it, and obviously you were that example for me, I would watch and see your content and that you weren't afraid to talk to the camera and talk to your audience and get your message out there. That was super helpful for me. And then the tip that you said about the captions for a camera shy person, and I've done this in my videos where I say this one's for my camera shy friends. It's like a tip. If you put a caption on there and you can get one of those ones that really pops, like a fun caption, a lot of times that can help you from feeling so camera shy because the focus isn't just flat on your face.
And while we're talking about camera shy, I want to just put this out there, and then I'll talk about the blue sky for a second. But I am an introvert. That may not seem that way, and everyone that knows me well will argue that I'm not. But I promise you, I recharge in the silence and space of my own company, and that's it. And so when you see me on camera and you see my content, you'd probably think, oh man, this girl loves to be in front of the camera. She loves to have, the attention. She's so comfortable. And I am very comfortable with it, but at the same time, I'm an introvert. I love being alone. I love not being. I hate a crowd, and so being able to control that content and edit it, it's a fun process. I curate the perception that people have of my brand, and so really, I love it. I will say also, just I used to script things out, and I would have like clip one say this, clip two say this, and I would write things out. I don't do that anymore because I've gotten so comfortable with how I convey things, and I can tell such a difference between my videos that are scripted. It's very like da 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 and da 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 and it's so disingenuous. Whereas when I just I'll just record on like cinematic mode, on selfie mode, and you see my little octo buddy. Y'all need to go get one of these on Amazon.
Oh yeah,
Game
those are awesome.
changer. You can stick this on a window. You'll have professional lighting, and it's $9.99. Anyways, you get so comfortable just recording the video. Don't record it in Instagram, record it in the camera roll app, and then upload it to your editor, whether that's CapCut, Instagram, wherever, and then cut out the silences, cut out the likes, the ums. And then before you know it, you're like, wow, this looks really good. And it was just you talking. And if you flub, since you're just recording on camera roll, you just take a deep breath, keep going with the thought. And then when you go edit it, cut all that stuff out. Nobody will know it even happened. And then that would be like my key to how to start getting into those talking heads and getting into those videos of yourself. I want to just touch on the fact that they were talking about this new platform, Blue Sky. And I'm going to tell you why I'm not on nor am desiring or open to signing up for any other platform. My focus is always to get people on my email list. My focus is building people to my email list. Right now, the vehicle in which I'm doing that is through Instagram and Threads. That could change, but right now it's not. And right now it's performing really well for me. I don't have the time or capacity to go jump to every new platform, which is why I'm not on TikTok. It's why I'm not putting any effort into LinkedIn or Facebook. My marketing is converting where it's at, and it's a worthy investment of my time while I can still balance my client work and do a really good job on the back end of my business. And so it's tempting. People go, oh, I didn't do good on this platform, so I'm going to go try this new one. This new one's going to be better. It's not the platform, it's your content. I hate to rip that Band-Aid off, but it's not the platform that's causing your poor performance. It is the content that you're posting. That's just the truth. You see these platforms come and go. There was a Truth Seek or something, Truth Social. There's Lemonade. There's Blue Sky. All these platforms are going to come and go, right? And people say that they could implode, the metas could implode. They could, and if they are, or if they do, I'll make another profile somewhere else. But right now they're not. This is where everyone's at, and this is where I'm going to be. And so that's not to give a bunch of attitude or anything, but that's just, I feel really strongly about that, because I think that people can get fear-mongered into expending energy they already don't even have, and then suddenly they're not performing anywhere because their butter is spread so thin.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So that's
I
how I feel about
agree.
that.
So for clients, I usually say 2 platforms. Let's focus on 2 platforms,
Yep.
maybe add a third later. But I know that I was in a live last week where they said that Gary Vee is saying that you should be on 7 or 8. And I really respect his opinion, but I'm like, okay, let's take that with the, consideration as to what that business owner already has on their plate, and do they have a team? If you want to be on 7 or 8 platforms, you're going to need a really robust team if you want to do that well.
And the robust team takes a lot of money, right? That's a big investment. I've had clients who scaled to 7 figures and then realized that to maintain that 7 figures, they were miserable. And actually 6 figures was plenty, and they could operate the 6 figures themselves and an assistant and live a much happier, less busy, less swamped life, and do work that feels really meaningful and impactful. And just, higher overhead is going to have higher expenses. That just is what it is. And so you're going to need more help. You're going to be paying for upgrading your softwares, your honey-books to accommodate more things, your ConvertKit, whatever it is. You're going to have more email subscribers. To make more money, you have to spend more money. And that's not to say to some people that's not worth it. There are some people whose dream is to build a multi-million-dollar empire, which to that I say, you go do that. For me, I'm a single mom, and I don't want to miss any precious moment with my daughter. I've had a VA, and then I realized that I just like to do everything myself, and so I don't mind not having a team. That saves me $500 to $1,000 a month. And it's finding what's a dream life for you? What is the ideal lifestyle that you want to live, and building a business that supports that, regardless of the Gary V's and the Alex Hormozis of the world telling you to scale to $1 million, scale to 1 million leads. And the other thing is, when you scale, are you prepared to handle that many leads? For people running ads and stuff like that. What if your ad pops off and suddenly you have 20 new clients? Can you take 20 new clients on right now and serve them all well? No. Okay, well, probably then just keep taking what you're taking, improve the client experience on the back end before you try to go for the, it's a perfect balance of gas and brake, and not just, it sounds fun to go pedal to the metal, but you can wreck yourself and wreck your business and do irreparable damage to your reputation.
Yeah. That's a really great point. And it kind of brings me back to what we were talking about with the cold pitches. I think the cold pitch I get the most often is, how would you like to have 20 qualified leads a day?
Don't get me started on how would you like to have 10 discovery calls a day? I'm like, I would rather die. It's what I would rather do.
Yeah.
It's my nightmare.
I think a constant, steady trickle in of inquiries into your business and growing your email list and stuff sometimes serves you a lot better than 20 leads a day.
this is going to sound very like woo woo and very Christian of me, but I really believe that God has put the right amount of customers in my life and clients that I can handle. I have come really close to hitting my limit. I had 13 clients in February, active projects going on at the same time. And I told myself, I never want to be this booked again. This is insane. And for the amount of revenue I was making, it wasn't even worth it. And so the change that happened after that, right? Because I was booking every discovery call. What that told me was my prices needed to go up, right? There should be people objecting to your budget, at least a few. If everyone says yes, no questions asked, then that means you definitely need to increase your prices, because that means that they would have paid even probably a little bit more. And what that did was then I went on 2 months later to have my highest revenue month with 3 client projects. And
Oh, that's awesome.
3. And it
Yeah.
was so comfortable. It was so good. And I thought I could work like this forever. If I can have a 10K month with 3 clients, I will do this rinse and repeat for the rest of my life. And so finding out like what is your workload saying about what you're doing right now, and what changes need to happen to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great way to approach the work-life balance. And then it kind of leads to this question that Daniel has put in the chat. He says, like it's more of a statement. I always make sure that I can do a new platform. Like, is it doable to add a new social platform before starting it? And I think that that's a really great place to start. Like, assess where you're currently at. How much work is the current social media output that you're doing? And just think that that's going to take some additional work to add another one. Make sure you can do it well before you start it. And honestly, I started a Threads account. I know we've talked about Threads a little bit. I put up a few posts, and then I kind of figured out either it wasn't my thing or I didn't have the bandwidth for it, something. So I decided to start putting my focus in some other areas that go a lot better with the reels and stuff I was already doing.
Yeah.
So sometimes you may start one and then figure out you need to pull back a little bit.
Yeah, I recommended Threads to my business coach, and Threads can be you can end up on the wrong side of Threads and just get eviscerated by hordes of people. And so while it is a great platform for especially service providers, especially marketers, I would say definitely copywriters, Threads is a great place if you're good at like a one-liner, a witty little in and out. That's a great place for you. But what can happen is people want to say the thing that gets the most attention or is most shocking, but you better be prepared that there's going to be a ton of it. Do you really want to go viral if it's for the wrong thing? If it's for the wrong, or if it gets you on the wrong side of the what was the light I use again? I don't have a light. I'm just in front. My office is positioned in front of my window, and I record out in my kitchen window or in front of my glass sliding doors. And this is called an Octo Buddy. And so this just like sticks on. I'll stick it right here on my computer screen, and then the windows behind it. I record here, I record at my kitchen window, or I record over in front of my glass sliding doors, and I just stick this guy on. I will say the back camera is better quality camera. And so it's kind of like, do you want the better quality camera for the clip, or do you want the convenience of sticking it? I just choose the convenience 99% of the time. But yeah, I don't currently have a light. And one other thing that I will say, I recommend to everybody, is get yourself one of these guys. So that way, if you are recording in the car or somewhere, I love this. It is just like a light. And
nice.
Again, cheap. This is like maybe $10. And so the best tools I use are like under $20 for sure.
Yeah, same. So for me, another really important piece about recording those talking head content videos has been a plug-in mic. So it just plugs into the bottom of your phone, and then it's like a clip, or you can hold it. Sometimes I do some funny things with it. I'll stick it on the end of a pen, or I've seen people stick it on a spatula or something, just to kind of draw attention and make it funny and light. I like that too.
It is. I love that for recording during nap time. If my daughter's asleep, I can just have my little mic right here, and I can just talk into it. And my camera's way far, and it's just funny. And what's funny is people listen. When you whisper, people listen closer. That's the crazy thing. It's not the loudest person in the room who gets the most ears. So yeah, little tools that can make content fun for you. Test them out. Obviously a lot of this stuff has to be charged, and so that can be like the thing, but little tools that just spice it up and make it fun. I think that's a worthy investment, and it's a business write-off too.
Yes, we
For
love those business write-offs. That's perfect. Okay. Um, let's talk about website copy because I know that that is something that you do a lot. And then I'm on the design side. I'm designing websites, and I mentioned this at the beginning, but a website copywriter and a website designer can actually have like this perfect pairing. So let's talk about that a little bit and how you approach the copy on websites.
Yeah. I will say, when you go to look for your website to be built, and I'm sorry, my coloring, I don't know why my coloring on this camera keeps going back and forth, but what designers, most people are really good, really wonderful at one thing, and they're okay at other things. I do okay in Canva. My strength is messaging. I'm no graphic designer, and I know my place in that. And I think a lot of the time you'll see designers that offer these full-blown packages that include the copy. But I really, really can't stress this enough, how important it is to hire both a copywriter and a designer when you get a website done, and to either do them at the same time or get the copywriter first, because the copywriter is going to write the copy and wireframe it, and then the designer will take that text and put it into the wireframe. But if the copy is misplaced, if it's not optimized for SEO, there are certain things that can happen that can negatively affect the website. And so to have a perfect pairing between a designer and a copywriter, a lot of people will have people they prefer to work with. Like if you hire me as your copywriter, I have a designer that I refer to who did my website, or obviously you and I have collaborated too. But sometimes they have two people they love that don't know each other, and that happens too. And sometimes it's how you find a great match, but then also sometimes it's not always, it doesn't always blend well, and that can happen too. And so I would say, like, ideally, if you're building a website, hire the designer, hire a copywriter, and then make sure that they jive and that they both get the vision and that they're good collaboration working together. You may even want to do a discovery call that has both of them on the call if they've
Yeah,
never
I
worked
can
together
see that
before.
being a really great idea
Yeah.
to actually introduce them to each other,
Hmm.
so that they know they're working together and they're not trying to compete with each other.
Right, because when
Um,
miscommunication happens, I just worked with somebody who hired their designer a year ago, then found me and wanted me to write the copy for the website. Website was already designed and done and had copy in it, and the designer requested that I write copy that only fits the character count of what they've got in there and doesn't change spacing at all. And when I tell you this was the hardest, it was the easiest client. I love the client. She's incredible, but it was so hard to not touch anything and know that like anything I might do that is too long or doesn't fit might be devastating to this website. And so it felt like not collaborative. It felt really clunky. And we kind of all, my client and I agreed that like in the future, or like looking back, hindsight's 2020, definitely would hire the copywriter first, get the messaging all figured out, and then incorporate the designer to do the design, because they have a lot more space that they can move things around and adjust things. Whereas telling me that, gun to your head, you can only write this sentence with this length. And it's like, oh, okay, like the
yeah,
pressure, the pressure. So that was
yeah.
the hardest project probably I've ever worked on. Just
Mhm.
in execution. There's so many things I would have wanted to say if I had unlimited space that I really had to filter through the design. So that's my take on
Gotcha.
that.
Yeah. So before I started my own marketing firm and I was doing some marketing for a CPA, she hired a offshore website designer. And I think that that was my first realization is like you really need someone for copy, because every time we would, give feedback on what the design should look like, the response was always, "Okay, what words are going to go here?" And then it was like
Hmm.
eye-opening, like, "Oh, okay, we don't really have a plan for that." We had all the idea for what it should look like, what it should feel like, where the buttons should go and what the functions of the buttons should be, and that kind of thing. I've gotten better now that I have a marketing firm at like helping people figure out the words and stuff. But when I was on that end of it, as just like a administrator of the business and like working with the website designer, it was very eye-opening. And hearing you talk about, the website copy should probably come first really makes a lot of sense to me because I have that example in the back of my head.
It does. And the other thing is wireframing. When I say wireframing, what I'm talking about is copywriters can, if they're trained to, we can flesh out like a mock website in something like Canva. Canva is probably where I would do it. But where you, as long as you know the brand colors, right? And you have some kind of creative direction, I would basically make a fake website and show the designer and the client what I am envisioning, whether it's, hey, I want a list on this side, I want a button on that side with a photo of you smiling, button's going to be right here. And so I flesh that out. And so when I deliver it to them, obviously the final design is going to be a little bit different because there's going to be movement. There's probably video clips involved. There's probably banners like the one you probably see below us moving across the screen. But you can give them a kind of rough example, like here's where I'm envisioning where it's going to be, the placement's going to be, versus I used to just deliver copy on docs up until recently, where it was just like section 1, section 2. Now I'm getting a little bit more involved in the creative direction of it, because you really do, like if you write something and you think it's so clear of how it's going to go on the website, you would be so surprised how other people interpret that differently and will just, to obviously do what their job is to do, which is to create. And then you look at it and you're like, oh, that's not how I, in my head, thought it was going to end up. So wireframing is really important. If you're shopping for a copywriter, I would definitely find somebody who knows how to wireframe and has that capability. It's worth the extra investment. It's worth working with someone who knows how to do that, because implementing the copy is it's a whole beast. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So Daniel says, yes, it's super important to have the team members jive and work more efficiently to serve the client. And then we also have this really nice comment I just want to highlight that says that Meryl's so impressed with Cassidy Handel as a guest. I agree. I knew she would be great. That was one of the reasons why I'm like, okay, debut episode, it's got to be Cassidy. So
I've never had a day where I woke up and didn't have anything to say. I will say I'm a certified yapper. So if you need somebody who can talk for a little while, maybe I'm your gal.
That's awesome. We're actually kind of wrapping up on our time.
I know.
I can't believe how quickly it's gone. So we're almost at the top of the hour.
If there's any more questions about marketing, anything like that you guys want to throw in, we're going to be here for a few more minutes. So we're happy to answer those, even if they're more customized questions, not general questions. Maybe you have a specific thing you're struggling with, whether it be with your emails or whatever. And yeah, I'm happy to, I said, there's no gatekeeping. Questions are free. So you can ask away.
I love that we can have the audience asking their questions.
Oh, that's really cool.
I have one more thing on the agenda, and then we'll see if any other questions come in. And if not, we'll go ahead and wrap up. But actually, I had more on my agenda, but we've just had such a lovely conversation. I'll just nitpick this one thing, not nitpick, cherry pick this one thing, because I'd love to dive into this a little bit. And it's just that everyone needs a business bestie. And we have definitely had that kind of relationship. And it's something that I think that entrepreneurship can be super lonely if you don't have someone in your life who you can bounce things off of.
Yeah, it can, especially when you're family. I know some people come from a family of business owners, so even then they understand. But if you come from a family of 9-to-5ers or a family of first responders, in my situation, it's hard nobody relates to what you do. I didn't know, before I owned my business, I didn't really know anybody that owned their own business. And so as much as it's competitive, it behooves you to make friends in business. And those are the people who understand. I've come to you, Kendra, when I've had difficult client situations or whatever it was, struggling with my mental health, and running the business while going through life circumstances. It's so important to have people, because somebody that doesn't own a business is going to say, well, why don't you just go get a normal job? That'll take so much stress off your plate. And it's like, they just don't get it. They don't get that there's something in your blood, there's something in your wiring that drives you to want to be entrepreneurial, that drives you to want to be your own business owner. I always, remind myself, I'm not anybody's employee. I'm their contractor, but they're my client, and so nobody's my boss at the end of the day. And I love that. And I never see myself really going back, but it's tempting. It's tempting to have friends that can remind you, like, hey, this is why you got into this. This is the potential if all goes well. If you can really get this figured out and get through this hard moment, this is what's on the other side of that mountain. And this is what you said you wanted. Like, is
Mhm.
it really worth giving up? Are you really there? Are you pushed to the point where like it's not worth it anymore? And just remind you where you're at, because if not, and they have to be authentic about it, right? You can sometimes make business owning friends who are more competitive and who are going to smile in your face and maybe not say great things about you behind your back. And so having discernment and knowing, this is a really true friendship. I feel like me and this person are on the same page. We both would say good things about each other in a room where they're not there.
Yeah.
Somebody said, how about a
That's
part
a
two?
true test of a friend. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Somebody said, how about a part 2 podcast with the certified yapper? I'm always down for a part 2.
That would be awesome. Well, yeah,
Part 2
we
is
can
going on the paid
definitely
Patreon. No, I'm just kidding.
we can come back to this conversation for sure. So
Yeah.
Danielle says wireframing correctly is huge for customer
Yep.
experience. Yeah. So the flow of the website, that has a lot to do with wireframing and getting a customer from that top banner headline to where they're eventually going to click a button that leads them to action. I think that is kind of the importance of wireframing. What would you say about that?
Yeah. I mean, it's to see obviously where the buttons would go, things like that, but also just to see the copy implement it in the way you're intending it. Like I mentioned the list thing. I just worked on a sales page recently where, that I was pretty specific in how I want the design to be, even though it's funny, my client is a designer. And so I knew that she would know what I was talking about with some stuff, but having something like a wireframe shows them, because there's different learners, right? There's audio learners, there's visual learners, there's kinesthetic learners, which is like me. I like to be hands-on. I have to do it to really understand it. And so a wireframe speaks to kind of all the learning styles of like, okay, you've got the copy, the order I want it in, but here's how I want it laid out, somewhat close. Obviously, there's going to be some creative differences as far as features and things. But yeah, the header obviously matters, the copy matters, but where it is matters too. Like on the photo, I've seen people put text over photos that made the text really hard to read. And obviously, if you want the text to do its job, it's got to be legible. So not having too busy backgrounds, showing them, hey, I want this to be solid right here. And then you can put your pattern here, whatever, not to be long-winded or anything, but.
Nope, that's great. All good thoughts. And I think that we've had just such a great conversation. I hope that the Business Boom listeners, both that are watching the replay back on YouTube or LinkedIn, or listening to the audios on all the podcast platforms, will just get a lot out of this and what we've had a chance to talk about. So thank you
Yes.
for everything. And I'm going to go ahead and put up some information about you. If you could just go ahead and tell people how they can get a hold of you if they wanted to know more.
Well, don't get a hold of me on LinkedIn, because if you do, I'm not going to see it. But if you want to chat, I would love to talk to you over on Instagram. I always say if you can't handle me at my threads, you don't deserve me at my Instagram, because my threads is kind of where it's a little bit unhinged. We have a little fun over there. We get a little silly. But ultimately, my favorite place to have you would be on my email list. There is a link on my Instagram bio, and at the very top, it says subscribe to my email list. We call it the Wild West Weekly. And I send out 2 emails a week, or I try to. Tuesdays and Thursdays are those days. And I just kind of go into storytelling and selling. Goodness gracious. I go into that in there and kind of bring up hot topics that we're hearing about, things that are viral, and why you shouldn't just believe everything you hear. I would say it's kind of a mix of copywriting, messaging strategy, and just overall business and marketing advice. And I try to make it fun, try to make it worth your while. And that's what I got. And there is a freebie. If you go sign up to my email list, you will get 50 free subject lines. And you can also use those for social media hooks, as Kendra brought my
They
attention
are great
to.
hooks. Uh-huh.
So go grab that
Yeah.
while I have it, because I will be pulling that freebie down soon and replacing it with something else.
Okay,
The
that's
Wild
wonderful.
West, y'all.
And then I know you didn't see this because you've already said you're not really active over here on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
but I would say that if you caught my live last week, I did do a little bit of diving into this one email, that marketing email that I received, that I actually look forward to getting. So, and then I did a little post and I tagged you in it. And so you didn't see it, but I
That's
was
so
talking
sweet.
about Cassidy. So you do want to get on that email list for sure because it's a lot of fun and I do look forward to receiving that every week. So thank you so much for being on the debut episode of the Business Boom. And yeah, we'll have you again sometime.
Thank you for having me. And thank you to everyone who's watching this. I can't even see the number of how many of you there are, but I just appreciate everyone that sat through this and that watches this in the future. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Kendra, for having me.
Thank you.
That's it for this week's Business Boom podcast. You've got the spark. Now go light up your business with what you have learned. If you like what you heard today, hit that subscribe button, drop us a review, or tell a fellow entrepreneur about the show. Keep pushing, keep growing, and catch us next week for more booming business strategies.